Who doesn't need a quick laugh to go along with some food for thought? Hello, I'm Dan Hill, the host of Scrambled Eggs, tips and tactics for tackling tough business problems. Today's guest is Sandy Schussel. He's the author of Becoming a Client Magnet, 27 Strategies to Boost Your Client Attraction Factor. Sandy is a former lawyer and cancer survivor turned coach for sales and service professionals alike. Sandy, you've been given 5 terms for my book, Blah, 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 A Snarky Guide to Office Lingo. They're all diabolical definitions, meaning to have a little truth in every joke. Of the 5 options I gave you, please read aloud your favorite one and explain why you chose it.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. My favorite definition is your definition of prospects. And you write prospects, 1, somebody with a pulse, 2, people with targets on their foreheads, and 3, the next person to say no. And the reason I like this is the truth is that these are all ways that a lot of sales professionals view the term prospects. Old-time financial advisors will say, well, you know, if they have a pulse and a wallet, I'm in, you know, we're going to do something. There are a lot of sales gurus, and I believe in this too, that will tell you to target your market. So imagining that they all have little targets on their foreheads is perfect. That makes total sense to me. And then struggling salespeople will see every prospect as the next person to say no, instead of seeing every prospect as a potential customer or client. They're all going to say no.
Sure. Well, it reminds me of one of my favorite cartoons from the Far Side. Well, there's 2 deer in the woods, and one has a bullseye on its chest, and the other one says, "Bummer of a birthmark, Hal."
Yeah, you know, I like the story. The guy who goes with his red can opener door to door, and he gets turned down at every door. And finally he arrives at a door and he says, "You don't want this ugly red can opener anyway," before he even starts to sell it.
Yeah.
So that's why
that's great. So let's turn to your book, Become a Client Magnet. What's a key term for you in the book, and what's the significance?
Yeah, at the beginning of the book, the very first chapter, I talk about being the red crayon. And what I mean by that is that too many advisors and too many professionals are white crayons in a box of white crayons. Yeah. And if you think of a 6-year-old opening up the box, and they're all white crayons, it doesn't really matter which one she pulls out. But if there's a red crayon in the box, she's going to go for the red crayon. And that same thing is true with any potential client, that if you're just like everybody else, it almost doesn't matter which person I pick to work with, because you're all the same. And so the goal for everyone should be to be the red crayon in the box. And that makes a difference. Now, how you do it, I would say the most important thing you can do to start is to be very clear, and I would have somebody write this down, on who you want to work with, who that target market is with the target on their head, who you want to work with, what is it that they need that you can provide to them. And then the third most important question is, why will they buy it from you? If there are 1,000 other attorneys or 1,000 other advisors, why you? And if you know those things, and it's not just because I'm a nice guy and I really help people, you know, because everybody says that, but if you know those things, then you're on your way to being the red crayon, which means you're on the way of differentiating, distinguishing yourself from all the other people who do sort of what you do.
Sure. Well, you had a thing I really liked in the book, speaking of why they're going to like you, and you bring up this wonderful saying, you say, be impressed, not impressive. So if you don't mind, tell the listeners about that as well, because I really like that passage in the book.
Yeah, it came out of something Dale Carnegie said in 1935 in his book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. He didn't exactly say those words, but we spend so much time worrying about whether they're going to like my office and I'm dressed appropriately. They're not worried about that. They're worried, will you like me? Will you think I'm an idiot for being in the jam that I'm in? Will, you know, all of those things. It's all about them. So instead of trying to be impressive, be impressed with them. You know, John, Mary, I know you've been able to put together $5,000 in your last 55 years on Earth. Great start. Let's,
Yeah.
be impressed with them.
Yeah, no, I like that a lot. So I want to thank you, Sandy, so much for participating. This is episode number 11 of Scrambled Eggs. I'm your host, Dan Hill, the author of Blah, 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 a snarky guide to office lingo.
Thanks, Dan.